Good morning, Mr. Heath. Thank you so much for joining, sir.
Good morning. Always a pleasure.
Sir, you must have listened to the mayor's reaction on last night's meeting. How do you react on that, and what's your take on that, sir?
The meeting was a complete disaster. Where we needed to get factual and correct information out to these people that have been impacted by this court decision really didn't happen to any great extent. We had biased positions put out. We had people talking versus the city solicitor was talking, the mayor was talking. We should have had our lawyer that was hired, that's been fighting this for quite a period of time, and he was sitting up there. He was only asked one time to respond. That was a person that can give balance, can give factual information, and that's what the people of Richmond came to hear. They have a right to be concerned. They have a right to ask questions such as, why were they not notified in 2014 when the actual suit was filed by the Cowichan tribe? Brody skirted around that question all damn evening, no matter how many times it was asked. He always blamed someone else, such as this time he was blaming the courts. It doesn't matter if the courts say you don't have to. We had an obligation back in 2014. If they were going to be affected, we should have done that potential problem analysis. We should have notified them years ago, even during the court process when this started to go a different direction. They should have notified the landowners so they could either be part of a defendant or at least intervene in this dispute that's going on. That did not take place. And as a result, it's percolated to where it was last night, and you saw the anger and heard the anger that came from people that are directly affected.
Sir, I heard that so many, property owners were saying that they are living there from last 50 years, 60 years, maybe more than that. And now they were claiming that if, according to this court ruling, if they are not owning any land in the city, then why are they paying City of Richmond taxes? I mean, is there any counter mayor given?
Well, no, he couldn't give an explanation, but that's part of the fear out there. And I'm a true believer that once you have fee simple, when the Crown has given you and you've rightly purchased that, you are the property owner of that. And I also believe the Aboriginal title and simple land fee, the property owners, cannot coexist. You either own the property, you don't own the property in this situation. In other areas of the province where the dispute is being played out on Aboriginal rights, it may be a little different, but for example, if it's strictly Crown land. But these are fee simple lands. They're owned by these people, like you articulated, for the last 50 years. They've been paying their taxes for the last 50 years. That's what they bought their property for, and they deserve to have it as their property. So last night did not get any additional information or substantial information out to these people to give them a little bit of comfort. Matter of fact, it raised the anxiety within these people because of the rhetoric that was spewed by the people on the stage.
Cash, I have a question for you. There was one person there yesterday who said that he had been refused renewal for his mortgage. That is quite scary, that on the premise of what has been announced so far and the fact that this hasn't even gone through the appeal process and all the legal actions that are pending, and as you've said before, this is going to be decided in the courts, that people are being refused mortgage renewals. And I think that is going to create more fear. Did you hear that last night?
I heard it last night, and I've spoken to people that are directly affected. For example, there's a land owner. Their company does the recycling. They want to develop their property on industrial like they have on one piece. They had their actual backing by their financial provider pulled multi-million dollars of credit because of this controversy that's going on. And I've also heard it from landowners that want to build their house on their property and ones that own condos in that area that have no financial security based on them owning their property whatsoever, possibly. Okay. And I really term this possibly because I think we're at early stages of it. I think we're at the kind of the storming stage of what is going on. And this is, Jenny, this is what I hoped was going to be accomplished last night, is we would give them factual, balanced information so they can move on. Did not do that. It was a total disaster.
Mr. Heath, do you believe or do you think that last night the meeting created more rift between the property owners and First Nations?
Yes, matter of fact, it divided that, and they've had a right to be. But let's look at this a bit a different way. They have a right to be angry at the city of Richmond too, and that came out, and that's the clip you played. Like, this action was initiated in 2014 and played out in the courts in the last 3 to 5 years with all the legal wrangling going on. At no time were they advised of the possibility that they may not own their land. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something. We were advised in council, me sitting there for the last 3 years, everything, the court case is running fine, everything's fine. We were never told of any possible impact on the landowners in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Heath, the big fear now is not only are individual worried about their own homes, their own condos, even the prospect of building a house, but this is going to have an economic impact because now businesses are having their investments pulled back based on this ruling.
Yes. Absolutely. And that was our job as, Jenny, you know this well, as politicians, to give them some comfort, to give them surety in that they are not going to be directly impacted based on this. I know we're going to have to leave it up to the courts, but there's a little bit of an opening there for either the province or the federal government and possibly the local government to start to talk and figure out a way out of this, so we don't have to go through the lengthy court process. Other than that, it will be a lengthy court process, and we'll be bound by that. And again, it goes back to, like we talked about previously, Section 35 of the Constitution Act, how that's actually defined and how the judge defined it when we start talking about Aboriginal title, when we start talking about some of those issues that affect all of Canadians. So 3 governments have a role to play in this, and I cannot really criticize any of these people that came out very vocal, very passionate about them, because as you know, people's life savings sometimes are in their properties, in their houses. So, you know, this is a problem, and I don't think, Jenny and Samir, that we have all 3 levels of government collectively working together to settle the anxiety that's out there.
Mr. Heath, there has been a opinion editorial sent to the media by the Attorney General and Ms. Nikki Sharma and Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, Spencer Chandra Herbert. And in that, they have mentioned so many things. And the main part, which I'm going to read out loud, that is that the courts have been clear for decades that we can't just ignore these questions. That would only lead to more conflict and be disastrous for British Columbians and our economy. But the fact is, you can respect Aboriginal title and protect private property. That has always been at the center of our government's approach to reconciliation. And that's why in the Cauchin case, our government argued explicitly that the rights of private property landowners must be protected. We told the court that anything else would create uncertainty and conflict. How do you see this, or how do you react on the op-ed of our Attorney General and Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, in case if you have read through?
Let me tell you, there's some rhetoric that's out there right now regarding directives that were given by the respective Attorney Generals of Canada and of British Columbia, where their counsel would not use the argument of the extinguishing of rights when fee simple property is involved. That is key to this. And, we've got to really start to look at that and define that to really understand whether these, for example, the current Attorney General, whether she's playing politics on this or not. But regardless of if they didn't use the argument, if they directed their lawyers not to use the extinguishment of rights to the argument, and they're saying now it can coexist. In this case, it cannot coexist. In other parts, we can have some type of coexistence, especially when you're dealing just with Crown and Aboriginal lands. But when you're dealing with fee simple, my opinion is you cannot have it coexist in this situation. So again, a lot of politics are being played, a lot of finger pointing is being played, and that's fine. We know that's going to take place. Put that aside now, and let's all work towards a solution on how we can work out all three levels of government. Get the politics out of this game. Get the passionate positions. We've explained them. We've gone there. Remember, the court case is in the past. We're looking at future. The judges either coming to their senses and coming up with something new, or the province working together to see how we can find some type of avenue so everyone can benefit from this.
So what we see is, as you've said previously, the courts have to decide, the governments have to work together, but Cash Heed, right now, every property owner across BC is wondering, how safe is my house? How safe is the land I own? And so what do you see as the ramifications if we don't get a speedy resolution to this?
Well, let me tell you, every homeowner across Canada should be concerned. This will have national implications here if, in fact, it is not dealt with in an expedited fashion. And that doubt, that uncertainty is going to be there. We've got to just calm the waters, collectively work together, have balanced positions on this, come to what we believe. But I strongly feel that a simple fee, the land property rights of the individuals that have obtained that property through them purchasing it, et cetera, need to be protected. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to be very optimistic here. It will be protected, but how we get there, Jenny, and how quickly we get there, that's the uncertainty.
It's also thrown the Cowichan band into a very weird position, because they're issuing press releases to say, we are not after a fee simple land. This is not what we asked for. And so I'm wondering what impact that is going to have on the court case when the band itself is saying, no, this is not what we were going after. All turning very interesting.
Yes, it is. It'll be interesting to see how that's interpreted within the appeal process that is actually going on here, and what legal framework they will text that in. And I think that's the important issue here. But nobody wants, we don't want anything, I'm being an extremist here. We don't want a civil war, for crying out loud. We want this matter dealt with. That's why we need to make sure these politicians just lower the temperature here for a bit, work together, get some resolution on this so we can move on and protect these people. Because, Jenny, you're exactly right. People in BC, even myself going, what the heck is going on? Is someone going to come in and say they own my land? Or, who am I going to pay Here's the big thing. People are saying, who do I pay my taxes to now? Do I pay it to the Cowichan tribe, or do I pay it to the city of Richmond, or to the province of British Columbia? There's that unsurety out there. We need to calm it. We need to get some surety. And that's why these lawyers that get paid a heck of a lot of money need to be the ones answering the questions, because we had a very qualified lawyer there that actually defended this case for, I think, the last 3 years or whatever, very well paid. He sat there while we had Brody and the city solicitor playing politicians and giving their side of the story, yet the expert, and he was asked one time to respond, and he responded in a legal expert fashion that was balanced and correct. He
So
did
what
not
was the
go
agenda?
on some
Yeah.
passionate.
So was the
What was
agenda,
the agenda?
to politically ramp things up or to give information? And looking from the outside, I would say the key speaker at that meeting should have been the lawyer who was in charge of this case and presented a clinical case. That's looking from the outside if we want to move forward.
Period. That exactly. That should have been the goal of this public information meeting. There was people's own agenda that were played out here. We don't have to get into that, Ginny. You know all this very well. You can read between the lines of what happened here and how the city solicitor just, I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there with people and they were even shaking their head and said, why is this guy coming up with his web of belief and his biases as he's supposed to be presenting factual information? So it was very one-sided. I'm very disappointed in it, but we will go on and we'll get through this and see what happens.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Cash, for coming out and elucidating and discussing the meeting last night.
Always an absolute pleasure to engage with you two. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.